7 unanswered questions about
Chucky, the killer dog!
What am I supposed to do with this?
Number 1.
How the fuck is Glenn Japanese? And
Number 2.
how was Chucky and Tiffany made in Japan if they're the original dolls from Bride? Let's just start with Glenn. Bro, you live in England and you was born in Jersey. There's a better chance of catching me having a rotten dog food eating contest in the worst Walmart parking lot in Florida than you being Japanese. And trust me, that's pretty damn slim. It's not happening. This whole made in Japan thing and Seed of Chucky makes absolutely no sense. I really don't like backtracking in my videos. I'd rather jump forward than back. But nowhere in Bride of Chucky does Chucky have a made in Japan stamp on his hand, on his wrist. He was still a Chicago-made good guy doll. You can go back and freeze frame it all you want. I did. And I already know what the argument's going to be. Tiffany rebuilt Chucky using different doll parts. And yes, that's correct. Very true. But none of these doll parts say made in Japan either. So when Glenn sees Chucky on TV, where he's doing that interview about Chucky Goes Psycho, and he sees the made in Japan tag on his wrist, he somehow concludes that's his parents. What in the candy ass blue hell gives you that impression? You know how many motherfucking dolls are made in Japan? I won't deep dive into this again because I already have, but I don't see why it's believed that these are the same dolls from Bride. Now the news reporter says this:
2 dolls supposedly possessed by serial killers. The dolls were found at the scene of a string of real-life murders which remain unsolved to this day.
What's interesting about this line is that nowhere does she indicate that these are the dolls from the crime scene. Notice she says the dolls, not these dolls. Plus, if we follow the same rules for the previous films with the voodoo aspect, Chucky bleeds in Child's Play 3 after being dormant after 8 years. This same concept should still apply, in somewhat of a sense. These dolls should be oozing red Kool-Aid every time they take a bump, because again, the hearts were never destroyed. Tiffany gave birth, for crying out loud. And we can see right here, their backs are completely split open, from nearly top to bottom. And there's no blood, nothing. If we follow the rules of every single Child's Play movie up to this, these cannot be the same dolls. They slowly turn human. And even with this film, if they accelerated becoming human, this logic still doesn't make sense. So what's up with the made in Japan thing? If these are the original dolls from Bride, they can't be. Tiffany didn't hook up with some Tokyo factory worker, did she? Another interesting thing to look at, to further my theory that these are just replicas, not the original dolls, is that the made in Japan stamps actually go away further in the film. They eventually disappear. You can see this clearly when Chuckerton over there is having his jerkathon in the bathroom, which makes me think the more human they become, the more these markings start to fade away as they revert back to their human form inside of the doll, just like they did in Bride of Chucky. So since that made in Japan stamp doesn't belong there, it slowly fades away. And with the Tiffany doll, she was more charred than Freddy Krueger's ass cheeks. Her face mode isn't even the same. I mean, it's not even close.
Come on now, dog.
But luckily, Chucky himself clears this up in the film.
We're not from Japan. We're from Jersey.
Thank you, Chucky. Finally. A voice of reason in this cash grab movie. So yeah, replicas no doubt. But that still doesn't explain Glenn's Japanese angle. And for whatever reason, after this scene, this angle's never explored again. You can cut this scene out completely and nothing changes. The movie remains the same. The whole thing's just dumb. Dembala isn't Japanese. Glenn isn't Japanese. He's from Jersey. He lives in England. I mean, I'm moving on. This is just dumb.
Number 3.
What's with the doppelgangers in this universe? And
Number 4.
who voices Chucky in Chucky Goes Psycho? Is it Brad Dourif? If so, why wouldn't Chucky go after his doppelganger? This is a long one, so buckle up. But it's mighty interesting, and I've never heard anybody talk about this. So first things first, who voices Chucky in Chucky Goes Psycho? Is it Brad Dourif? Because if it is, that means in universe, Charles Lee Ray has a doppelganger of Brad Dourif. I mean, this is huge. You have a carbon copy of the Lakeshore Strangler. Why wasn't this explored? This would have been one hell of a twist. I mean, let's think about this. Why did Chucky never once even think about going after his doppelganger? It would have been the perfect setup to bring Charles Lee Ray back into the flesh. Chucky hunts down Brad Dourif, which is the carbon copy of the Lakeshore Strangler, Charles Lee Ray, transfers his soul into him, and boom, the Lakeshore Strangler is reborn, back at large, better than ever. You could have had a whole era of brand new chaos. An army of Chucky good guy dolls led by Charles Lee Ray again. It would have been a full circle moment to bring it back to the original movie. You had Tiffany taking over Jennifer Tilly's body, throw that into the mix, and wow, they could have went some really dark places. And Curse of Chucky, when they really try to make it scary again, but we know instead they went in a different direction. But speaking of doppelgangers, the Chucky universe is crawling with them. You got Jennifer Tilly, Tiffany Valentine, they coexist in this universe. In the TV show, you got Jake's dad and his uncle, who are literally twins. But then you got Father Bryce, and now even the president in season 3. That's 4 right there. But that makes me wonder, does Devon Sawa exist in this universe as well? Because that would make 5 of these characters. 5 doppelgangers. And don't even get me started on Pete Peters in this movie. Remember that sleazy paparazzi dude who catches Chucky mid-solo session and paid the price for it? I mean, he tried to save face. Get it? Save face because half his face got, you know what? Why do I even try? And then years later, in the TV show, he becomes Wendell Wilkins, the creator of the good guy doll himself. So that's 2 of them. But I often wonder, does John Waters exist in this universe as well in Hollywood? Because if so, that makes 3. But what's interesting about this is that could mean there could be a doppelganger of Andy Barkley, his mother, Tyler, Mike Norris. The list goes on and on and on. Or is it just so specific to what we see on screen? But back to the big one. In this very large, bizarre universe of doppelgangers, in the Chucky universe, does Brad Dourif exist? I mean, somebody voices Chucky in Chucky Go Psycho. Is it Brad Dourif? The carbon copy of the Lakeshore Strangler. Now that's interesting to think about. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments.
Number 6.
Rapid fire round. So all Glenn has to do is say Dimballa's name and then say awake to resurrect his parents.
Ade Due Damballa, awake.
How do you go from Chucky's iconic Damballa chant to them reading chapters and chapters of voodoo and the Voodoo for Dummies book to learn everything? The flashback scenes where Chucky spends years studying voodoo? All of this buildup in the world of voodoo you created. Chucky splitting his soul. Everything. The whole 9 yards. But yet all Glenn has to say is awake to bring back his parents. What? Curious question. If Glenn has no parts, as we see here, how is he constantly pissing his pants? Where's it coming from? His belly button? That's disgusting.
You're pissing your pants! You're pissing your pants!
You're pissing your pants!
Hey, you're pissing your pants!
Tiffany is very strange throughout this movie. Here she has a mole. Here she does not. Here she has a mole. Here she does not. Here she has a mole. Here she does not. Here she has a mole. And here she does not. What's up with that? I completely forgot that Seed of Chucky shows us Tiffany's plastic boobs and even a close-up. And I mean a real close-up of Chucky beating the meat. What am I doing with my life? Wait. So if they can drive, what was the point of Bride of Chucky with Jesse and Jade? This movie's pissing me off! This movie is basically just a fuck Julia Roberts movie.
Julia Roberts. I'm so tired of hearing about Julia Roberts. She slept with the director, that's what I think.
Julia Roberts.
Bullshit.
So Chucky is in the middle of a Los Angeles hospital, in a hallway, chopping down a door with an axe. And nobody's asking questions? Yeah, okay. Where are the Chucky Goes Psycho dolls? Here's a curious one. If Chucky Goes Psycho really happened in universe like the TV show confirmed, then where are the reproduction dolls? If we break this down, this movie was finished. This can mean one of 2 things. Jennifer Tilly finished production, and what we see is the aftermath. Or, once Tiffany possessed her body, Tiffany had to go back and finish the shoot, where they wrapped up the film. Which would be absolutely bonkers, considering all the chaos and suspicion around Jennifer Tilly. I mean, you had that special effects guy, Tony. Beheaded on set. You had Jennifer Tilly's mansion turned into a crime scene. There was a dozen dead bodies in there. Safe to say she beat the odds. So again, since this movie was released, where are the reproduction dolls? There's no way they didn't mass produce some replica dolls for promos or merchandising. But yet in the TV show, when they're hunting down good guy dolls to build an army, every single one of them are confirmed to be from the 80s. There's not a single mention of the 1998 Good Guy Doll production run in Part 3, or the 2004 movie Chucky Goes Psycho. This was a golden opportunity they completely missed. You telling me Chucky Goes Psycho became a cult hit, and not one of those prop dolls ever resurfaced? Like, come on guys. I read a deep dive in the production of the Good Guy dolls in my Child's Play 3 video. I go in depth, so I won't beat that to death. But seriously, if these movie dolls existed, they should have been a huge deal in the series. But instead, they just vanished. So in the TV show, you have a bunch of replicas that look like this. But just imagine if they found the replicas of this movie, Chucky Goes Psycho, and they had a bunch of dolls that look like this. They could have had some more stitched up style Chuckies running around, killing motherfuckers in the TV show. That would have been awesome. At least one or two, not just the originals. You could have had the best of both worlds. But my question remains. Years later in the TV show, they track down nearly every Good Guy doll in existence from the 80s. But they don't have one single doll, reproduction doll, of the Chucky Goes Psycho movie. Why? Let me know down in the comments.
Number 8.
When did Chucky kill Tiffany's mother? And
Number 9.
is Tiffany's sister still alive? And if so, is she a doppelganger? Hear me out. I'll start this one off with this clip right here.
Enough with your mother already. I killed that bitch 20 years ago and she still won't shut up.
What interests me the most about this is not necessarily the question, but how it fits in the timeline. Since Seed of Chucky takes place in 2004, 20 years before that would have been 1984. But when he says 20 years, I'm taking that as rounded up. Considering if we go much lower than that, Tiffany might have been underaged when she met Charles. And that's one angle I don't want to get into. But based off the TV show flashbacks, Chucky and Tiffany met somewhere around, I'm assuming, 1986. I say this because in Bride of Chucky, Tiffany says that they stayed together and lived together for years. Plural. Years. Before he was gunned down in 1988 in that doll store.
We lived together for years. Of course, that was before the cops killed him.
Speaking of the flashback scenes, we see them get Tiffany's infamous car, which I imagine had to take place somewhere around 1987. And they got their apartment in 1988, the same year Charles got gunned down by Mike Norris. This is a very thin window this could have took place. And knowing how Tiffany loves her mother, it's all she ever talks about. Quotes her all the time. She lives her life by her mother's words.
My mother always told me. You know what my mother used to say about dirty girls? It's like my mother always said.
Christ! Enough with your mother already.
It's weird to think that Tiffany would have been so forgiving that Charles killed the one person she looks up to. The one person that she ever truly loved and admired, idolized. The one person she had real love for. So if Chucky killed her mother somewhere in the mid to late 80s, did he kill her before they met or during their very, very short run? Did Tiffany take him home per se and introduce him to mom and sister? And one of those meet the family dinners went terribly, terribly wrong? Did old Mommy Valentine have her last supper and Charles got that ass? Again, they didn't officially start living together till 1988. And Charles got killed in November of 1988. When I say there's a very thin window this could have happened, there's a very thin window. That means they lived together for less than a year. It's one thing that's never explained, that I wish they would have explored. But now let's talk about the sister. Is she still alive? Listen to this clip here.
Well, that won't explain your sister.
They never talk about Tiffany's sister in the past tense, which leads me to believe she's alive and well. And it's a shame we never got introduced to the sister. A bad bitch like Tiffany Valentine? Somewhere along the franchise you throw in her batshit crazy sister as well? I'm down for that. I think it would have been a nice addition. I wonder if she's as crazy as Tiff. I wonder if she's hotter too. But another interesting question about this, since Tiffany and Jennifer Tilly are doppelgangers in this universe, Jennifer Tilly has a sister. So would Jennifer Tilly's sister be a doppelganger of Tiffany Valentine's sister? Something makes me think this is exactly what she would look like. But considering all the doppelgangers in this universe, this only makes sense to say. So you have Jennifer Tilly, her sister, Tiffany Valentine, and this is what her sister would probably look like, just with blonde hair. Either way, the 20 years ago, the doppelganger sister, it really makes you wonder where it all fits into the timeline. Because it does exist. Seed of Chucky confirms this. But we never get to see it fleshed out. Because if Charles killed Tiffany's mother before they met, well, that opens up another can of worms, don't it? But if it happened during they was dating, which is probably the case, that goes to show how really batshit crazy Tiffany is. But what do you think about this? The mysterious timeline with the mom. The possible sister being the doppelganger of Meg Tilly. Let me know down below.
10.
What really happened between Seed of Chucky and Curse of Chucky? I think most people overlook the fact that Chucky survived his defeat in this film. And after Glenn gets attacked by his arm. I mean, there is a 9-year gap between these films. That is a hell of a long time. But during that time, we never got to see Tiffany and Chucky patch things up. Into the years of leading up to Curse of Chucky, Cult, and the TV show. We don't know what transpired. The only thing that we do know is that 5 years after Seed of Chucky is when that birthday party takes place. So here's my take on the lost years. Tiffany is of course in Jennifer Tilly's body now, living her Hollywood dream, raising Glenn and Glenda, No Chucky in sight, she actually gets the opportunity to play mom now, which is her ultimate goal in this movie, to be a better mom. But let's be real, she has a little slip.
It was just a little slip.
But let's be real, Tiffany without Chucky is like a cigarette without fire. It's not gonna work. Eventually she's gonna relapse. So at some point between the twins' 5th birthday and 2013, she starts to miss the chaos. So she digs out Chucky's remains, stitches him back together, gives him fresh good guy doll clothes, and even gives him a beauty makeover covering his scars with latex. Chucky's back. But this time he's a little bit more patient, a little bit more methodical. Not as comical this time. He's no longer obsessed with being human. He wants to remain in the doll now. Because now, he just wants his revenge. To catch up on his loose ends that got away all these many years ago. And Tiffany being Tiffany, probably ships him to one of his unfinished business victims. Maybe Jesse and Jade, who knows. Since the last time we saw them, I mean Chucky does mention them in the past tense, implying that they're gone. Of course we never see that.
Since then, a lot of families have come and gone. The Kincaids. And now, you're the last one standing.
He could just be blowing smoke. But regardless, we know that Chucky killed somebody between the gap between Seed and Curse before he got to Nika's house. So Chucky finishes the job, gets found at the crime scene, and winds up as evidence in police custody, and then he's ready for round 2. Tiffany bribes the cops again, retrieves the doll, and mails him to Sarah Pierce.
So, who's next?
Kickstarting the beginning of Curse of Chucky, and then the cycle repeats at the very end, leading up to Cult of Chucky. I mean, if we think about it, Chucky's been decapitated multiple times, and that's never stopped him before. He's never truly dead unless his heart is destroyed, and that never happens in this film. He loses his head, his arms, his legs, but that's not enough. So I think Tiffany kept him locked up until he manages to sweet talk her, the same way he always does, to get his freedom back. Then eventually, she moves out of that mansion into the house that we see in season 2 of the show, probably after the incident, convinced her it was time for a fresh start. That and she was running out of money. Bottom line is Chucky never died during Seed. I imagine he was still very aware of things. I mean, further along in the franchise, he gets decapitated and the head can still talk. I imagine this is the same situation here. So there was no absence of Chucky. During all those years during the gap, Chucky and Tiffany was talking, as normal. Shit talking, getting mad, but finally, they patch things up, which creates the rest of the films in the franchise, as well as the TV show. So Chucky just had to time out until he was useful again. But that's my version of events. So if you have a different theory about the gaps between these films, let me know down below. I would love to hear your thoughts. With that being said, if you have any theories about Curse of Chucky, feel free to drop it in the Discord. The Discord is free, it's just a hangout spot. You can drop your theories. You can come tell me about your day, how good it was, how bad it was. We talk about everything over there. We talk about music, comics, life, everything under the sun. With that being said, I also have a YouTube membership where you can get early access to all my videos. I do giveaways, you get priority replies in the comments, you get custom emojis, loyalty badges, the list goes on and on and on. Don't feel obligated, but you'll be supporting me and this channel. So until next time guys, where I'll see you in Curse of Chucky, adios.